Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Change Leadership episode this week with Stella Ihenacho. Hey, Stella, welcome back.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
So, Stella, Wednesday is about change because that's the topic we work with every single day in our job, of course. So let's go through one of those stories, the story of a change process you were involved with, and walk us through the steps, how it went through from beginning to end. And as you go through those steps, highlight for us the tools, the tips, the tricks, and the techniques you learned back then that you still apply today.
Okay, so I am going to talk about how I was able to help my teams, so multiple teams, literally transition from multiple project management tools to JIRA. And so I don't know if I'm supposed to mention the name, but anyway, we had multiple project management tools, and my goal was to transition them into a unified tracking tool so that we have one place where we can see our unified backlog. And so that was really the process that I had to go through. And so let me give you a bit of context. So in my organization, there was just this need again, because most of the teams were using multiple things. And so it was hard to figure out, well, what is our roadmap? Where are we going to? How is our work dependent on other teams? You know, we couldn't see where we're at. It was hard to say, are we 20%, 30%, 40%? What are the dependencies? Nothing of that nature could be seen again, because multiple teams had different things in different places. And so the goal was, how can we streamline, visibility? How can we streamline collaboration? How can we ensure that the teams are all aligned and we're working out of the same project management tracking tool? So when I think about some of the challenges that I definitely faced, there are multiple of them, because first of all, people resist change. Like the first reaction to change is to resist change before you even know what is happening, because they're already used to what they're doing. And sometimes even if they find out that they have challenges with that, I prefer the a known devil to an unknown angel. And so that's typically the reaction you get. And so the first challenge was definitely resistance to change, because again, like I said, they were already so accustomed to the existing tools and they had been using it for month over month over month. And so they built that way of working, however dysfunctional, with that tool. And also for the new tool that we're moving to, there was this unconscious understanding that it was super complex and they didn't want to learn anything new, right? So that was one of the challenges that I faced was actually resisting to change. The second one I would say was also just people were at different level when it came to technical proficiency. And so when it came to the tool that we're moving to, some people understood it, some people didn't understand it. And so it was more like, how do we get started? What do I do? Now, I'm sharing some of these challenges because it will also give the listener an idea of things that they have to think about when they are leading change, right? So first of all was resistant to change. Second was people had different understanding of the tool in itself. And so some people were unfamiliar with it, some people were familiar with it, and actually some teams were already using it. So we had people at different levels of familiarity with the tool. And then the other point I would say that was really key was they thought it was going to disrupt their work. And so just working sometimes is the culture that has been built that, oh my goodness, you want to come and change our tool, it's going to change our momentum, it's going to delay our momentum. So people, they literally saw the fact that it was going to cost them, but I had to literally explain to them that it's going to cost you at the short term, but it's going to pay at the longer term. However, the tools that we're using, how we are structured right now, is costing us at the short term and at the long term. And so that perceived disruption was a major challenge that we're facing. So how did I start leading this change? How did I make sure that I was able to get majority of our teams over to this new unified project management tracking tool? The first thing was ensuring that I figured out who our stakeholders were. And so started putting together a stakeholder engagement workshop. One of the key things was trying to understand from them what their pain points were from the tools that they were already using. I wasn't about to tell them this is the holy grail tool that you have to use.
And this, by these stakeholders, you mean not just the teams that were actually using or needed to start using the tool, but also the people who needed the information that would be in the tool, right?
That is absolutely right. So those who were using, these people who are going to get the data from the tool as well, and even our other sister teams, sister organizations as well, right? Because the goal was to streamline visibility, not just within the team level, but above the team level as well. So what were their different pain points, right? Again, not selling them any tool, but figuring out what the pain points were. And so when I began to get this pain point, I began to see like, well, most of these pain points are similar and can be put in different buckets, right? Now, getting buy-in from them, that do we think that a different tool that can solve this problem will be ideal, or is that something that you can consider, right? So again, getting buy-in from the leadership, from the team, from other sister organizations, and kind of like getting their feedback on what their pain points were, and just making sure that this was visible to all of them, that indeed how we are structured right now is costing us short term and they're costing us long term as well, right? And then with that being said, now being able to introduce the new project management tool as one that could solve some of those challenges. And so what I did was I also did some sort of pilot implementation. And so instead of just rolling out to all the teams, was what are the key teams that we can use? And we didn't just choose teams randomly. We chose teams at different levels. We chose teams that were newly formed, so just newly formed. And we also chose teams that were also high priority teams that are working on high priority projects as well. So there were key teams that were chosen, and I didn't choose them by myself. I make sure that, leadership and management were involved in the choosing of these teams as well. And the teams are also brought into wanting to transition and see what the feedback was going to look like. And so pilot implementation is very important. So when you're leading change, you just don't lead change across board. You want to get some small wins by figuring out what the teams are. So that's one of the things that I did. And the outcome with that was I was able to identify challenges, real-time challenges, get real-time feedback from the pilot, right? And then be able to make adjustment before broader adoptions across all the teams. Now, something else, again, that really helped me was begin to identify champions. Like I said, some of the teams already started using JIRA. So it was easier for me to figure out, well, who can be champions with this new tool, right? And so they were the ones who were like on the team level, on the management level. So they had like management meeting, leadership meeting, team meetings, and all of that. We usually have like a time in our meeting, in their meeting agenda, to talk about the benefits of this tool. So not forcing it down their throat, but teams are talking about, well, we use this tool and this is how it's helping us, or if we use this is how it's going to help us, right? So my champions were on the team level, on the leadership level, driving the message of this new tool and the benefits that it could provide. And so what that did for me was ensuring that there was also peer-to-peer support, so that they don't just see me as someone who's coming to come out drive change, but they now have trust within, because they work with their peers, right? So there was not peer-to-peer support. There was understanding, there was trust, and all of that. And there was, they were able to ask questions, and those questions could be answered as well. Something else is as well that I definitely did was feedback loop, right? And so when we started to implement most of these changes across multiple teams and we took a broader approach, was ensuring that we had feedback and we had a support system. And so we put together more like an adoption plan. So from the barest minimum, this is where you are in the phase of the implementation. This is where you are in the phase of the implementation. And at this phase, if you have any question, this is who you should contact. So it was literally like an exhaustive process across the change from beginning to the end. And at every point in time, there was also an opportunity for them to ask questions, give feedback, and then we are literally taking that feedback and making sure that the next person who's going to continue that process is a better process for them as well. So regular feedback loop is so important when you're rolling out change. Now, if I'm going to think about all of this and think about the results, I'll definitely say, like, now that we have majority of our teams using this project management tool, now we can see more collaboration across most of the teams, because now everybody's work is in the same tool. It's easier for us to do the linkage, to do the dependencies. There's visibility now, because anybody can come into anybody's project and see where they're at. Teams now have their dashboards, but they also have, their projects created and all of that. So there's now enhanced visibility. And so that helps with making decisions, team decisions or business decisions. And then, of course, a cultural shift as well. Now, I'm not going to say that this change was, easy breezy and straightforward, but it took a lot to make this happen. Not just me, but like I said, we had champions. I had champions within the team. I had a team that I had to work with, and I had to be really methodological about how we're going to make this, because it was going to affect business processes and business operations as well. So I could keep going on and on. I'm not sure how much time that I have, so I just wanted to pause here.
No, I think that's already so much. I mean, I counted at least 5, maybe 6 tools that you shared with us from this transformation, from this change, and one that many of us have to go through, whether it is changing into one tool or for many of us Scrum Masters and Agile coaches out there, changing into one process, right? Because it's the same thing, getting everybody to agree on, how do we do the handovers, how do we synchronize, all of that stuff that is required to work in a multi-team environment where many of us work today. So it was a great story. Thank you for sharing, Stella.
You're welcome.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role. We'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.